Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. We got a lot of live shows coming up. May 12th, we're in Tempe, Arizona. May 12th, May 3rd, we're in Burbank. And June 5th, we're in Hermosa Beach. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all those tickets. We're here with Ron Placone and the Miserable Liberal. How you doing?
Great.
Good.
Ron Placone's on tour this weekend. Where are you, Ron?
Yeah, this week, Graham Elwood and I are in Texas. We're going to be in Fort Worth. We're going to be in Houston. We're going to be in San Antonio, Austin. RonPlacone.com for tickets.
All right, so let's get to this. So now, Barack Obama likes to go to other foreign countries and wag his finger at voters, and now he's wagging his finger at progressives. And what you need to remember, what people forget, because Trump is so horrible, people are over-loving the memory of Barack Obama, and people don't realize that the reason why we got Donald Trump is because people were hurting. They voted for a black guy with a Muslim name, and he then governed exactly like Mitt Romney. So we were never given left-wing policies. We were never given that. We were governed by a right-wing Barack Obama. That's a fact. And here's the proof.
The truth of the matter is that my policies are so mainstream that, you know, if I had said the same policies that I have back in the 1980s, I'd be considered a moderate Republican.
So that's why we got Trump, because he didn't break up the banks. He didn't help the people save their houses. He didn't help the unions. He didn't end the wars. He expanded them. His whole cabinet came from an email. This is from October 6th, 2008, before the election. His entire cabinet came from an email from a guy at Citigroup. That's the guy. See, at Citi.com, sends it to Barack Obama's co-chair, John Podesta. And there it is. Hey, here's a list of all the people I want. This was October 6th. The election was November 4th. And yet Froman, an executive at Citigroup, which would ultimately become the recipient of the largest bailout from the federal government during the financial crisis, had mapped out virtually the entire Obama cabinet a month before the votes were counted. So now when you watch this video of him just the other day, you'll know why he's saying this stuff.
I know from experience in passing the health care law that I had to work on in the United States, that was not the ideal health care program that I wanted to set up. It's what I could get at the time, and if I could establish the principle that everybody gets health care and get 20 million people more health care, even if 10 million still hadn't gotten it, that's what I'm going to do now.
First of all, it was 30 million people who still hadn't gotten it. And the rest of the poor people that you did give Obamacare to, it was almost worthless to them because they had deductibles of $5,000, which means they couldn't go to the doctor when they had a symptom. So it didn't change poor people's lives almost at all. And it left 30 million people out. He's lying. And he did that on purpose. He could have gotten the public option. He chose not to. People blame it on Joe Lieberman. It was Barack Obama and the people inside the Citigroup that told him what to do, and he did it.
And then I'll fight some more later for the other 20%.
When did that fight happen? Did anybody remember that fight? He fought after they passed Obamacare. Do you remember him fighting to bring a better health care to anybody else or a public option or anything? When did that happen?
I don't even remember a kerfuffle over it.
No.
Much less a fight. Then I'll fight for it later. What does that mean
You
later?
mean after they flip the House on you in the Senate and you have absolutely no control of the Congress anymore? That's when you're going to get good health care?
Is he still? Is he still asking for Medicare for all?
So I just want to tell you that Barack Obama, when he was president, when Barack Obama became president, he had complete control of government. They had a filibuster-proof Senate, the Democrats did, for at least a couple months. And if the Republicans have that, they jam every goddamn thing they can down. And what Barack Obama did was pretend that his hands were tied. They weren't. And he did it on purpose.
So, to go back to the point that was made by Conleth, what's true for me when I was a president or an elected official, it's going to be true for you as well, even within your own organizations. And one of the things I do worry about sometimes among progressives in the United States, maybe it's true here as well,
Here it comes.
is a certain kind of rigidity where we say, I'm sorry, this is how it's going to be, and then we start sometimes creating what's called a circular firing squad. where you start shooting at your allies because one of them is straying from purity on the issues.
Okay, so what he's telling you again is don't fight for things you believe in. Don't fight for Medicare for all. Don't fight for a public option. Don't fight for a living wage. Don't fight to end the bank, break up the banks. Don't fight to end the wars. Just take whatever the establishment is willing to give you. Because I'm going to tell you something when he's talking about purity. When he's talking about, say, Medicare for all, which the overwhelming majority of Democrats and Republicans are for. The country's for it. You know who's not for it, Barack? The health insurance companies and Wall Street. So when you say you can't be pure and you have to negotiate, what you're literally saying is you're negotiating between what the people want and what Wall Street wants. And that you have to give in to Wall Street. Not other people, not what the Republicans want. Because the Republican people, voters, want Medicare for all. So you're not saying negotiate with the Republicans. You're saying literally negotiate with the donor class. That's what he's saying.
This is the complete opposite of everything that got him elected the first time.
Yes.
Too. Like he went from yes we can to well we could have, but whatever. Let's go bowling.
Let's go
Like
bowling.
He just doesn't care.
He went from yes we can to take what they'll give you. And don't be a purist. What he's telling you is don't fight for things that are overwhelmingly popular. And who should we negotiate with? With the donor class. He's not saying negotiate with other voters. That's not what he's saying. He's saying we have to negotiate with the donors because the other voters want it. So who are we now who are we being pure to? What he's talking about is you have to accept corruption. And if you push back against corruption, I'm going to call you a purist. And why does Barack Obama say that? Because he's bought, and he was from day one. Barack Obama was bought from day one. And because we have Trump, people are pretending he was Santa Claus when what he was Mitt Romney.
And when that happens, typically the overall effort and movement weakens. So I think whether you are speaking as a citizen or as a political leader or as an organizer, whether you're in the nonprofit space or in civic space or you're in the political arena, you have to recognize that the way we've structured democracy requires you to take into account people who don't agree with you.
Yeah, that's not democracy. What you're talking about is corruption. That's what he's talking about. And Barack Obama is bought and paid for it. And if you don't know it, if that email from Citigroup, there's a million things I could show you. A million things. Barack Obama goes from the White House to Wall Street in record time. That's another headline. I could show you a million things. So what he's saying is you have to realize you're not going to get everything you want. What he means is the donor class is going to keep things from the citizens that the citizens want. Because, the overwhelming majority of Democrats, almost 90%, want Medicare for all. 9 out of 10 Democrats. So who are you saying negotiate with? Republicans also want Medicare for all. The voters. You know who doesn't? The donor class, which is who he's a part of. This is all about class. This is about the class. It's not about that he's black or that someone's a Muslim or that someone's a lesbian or that someone's a gay or a transgender. It's about the class they're in. Barack Obama is a 60, 80, 100 millionaire right now. And he always came from this class. All of his cabinet came from this class. And that's the problem. And I learned that reading Thomas Frank's Listen Liberal. And this is all bullshit. See if there's any more to this.
That, by definition, means you're not going to get 100% of what you want. But you should take some time to think in your own mind and continually refine and reflect, what are my core principles? Because the danger is if you don't know what your principles are, that's when you compromise your principles away.
Uh-oh.
So you have to know ahead of time, here's what I'm...
So he's saying compromise, but don't compromise too.
So
That's what he's saying.
So what he said is he knew his principles entering office, and those principles were not to represent the needs of the people.
That was his core principle.
Okay.
He didn't give the unions card check, which he could have didn't do it. He could have broken up the banks. He didn't do it. Could have saved small banks. Didn't do it. Could have saved people's houses. He didn't do it. Could have helped the unions in Wisconsin. Didn't do it. Could have did could have ended the wars. He expanded them. Didn't do it. So what he's saying, so now he's saying, but, you have to have core principles. Yeah, my core principles is no corruption. If I'm going to negotiate with someone, it's going to be with other voters. It's not going to be with donors. And that's what Barack Obama wants you to do. That's what he's telling you. Don't fight for what you want. Go ahead.
I can't help notice, but you've stopped that video at like the most perfect moment. I mean, look at oh, don't fight for your principle. It looks like that's what he's doing. It looks like he's doing the CK. It's not a double CK because he's got a mic in his
principles.
hand. Yeah, exactly.
Jimmy, I wasn't that long ago where we were watching a video where he was in Italy and telling people that
if people
voters,
don't vote, you get bad government.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I wonder why people aren't voting, especially after 8 years of me. I wonder why people don't feel government's responsive to their needs. Let's see some of the
Willing to compromise on, here are the things that I'm not. You can't set up a system in which you don't compromise on anything, but you also can't operate in a system where...
Yeah, okay. You can't operate in a system. You can't operate in a system where, you actually start legislating that help people. Instead, there's got to be massive profits attached to any help we give to people, like the healthcare bill. Well, we had to ensure huge profits for big pharma and the health insurance industry and Wall Street. That's how you get things done. You ensure that there's going to be a big profit motive to whatever legislation you pass.
And somehow, even giving us, we finally get some sort of healthcare access, some sort of, right?
Still bankrupts us.
Even with that, yeah, still bankrupts us, still makes it hard to get prescription drugs. Right. It's so expensive if you have to get one prescription drug a month. It's awful. So also, we look at this guy, and now we have Trump. He didn't inspire anybody to take over the baton, except we have Donald Trump, who's got
10 years,
a larger military budget.
So now going on 8, 9, 10 years after he passed his big healthcare plan, insulin has become so expensive that as many as 1 in 4 people with diabetes are now skipping life-saving doses. Congratulations, Barack. That was a hell of a great program you instituted. That giveaway, that right-wing healthcare plan that Mitt Romney would have instituted too. You got elected, so you got to do it. This is the result. Hey, hip, hip, hooray. The inventor of insulin, Dr. Frederick Banting, said insulin does not belong to me. It belongs to the world, and gave the patent to the University of Toronto for the sum of $1. It's mind-boggling that such essential life-saving medicines aren't accessible to so many people in a country as rich as the United States. Here in New Zealand, we have a $5 copay for a 3-month supply of most prescription medicines.
That is...
Barack Obama would tell you to be a purist if you want the same thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing him say things like, oh, you can't be too rigid and say, well, this is the way it's going to be. When Dennis Kucinich did the Jimmy Dore show, and you asked him about, hey, you really pushed back against when Obama was taking away the public option. We all remember when that bill came into the sphere and it got gutted and gutted and gutted and gutted. And when Dennis Kucinich, one of the few people that stood up against it and said, Obama, what about the public option? And he told us, he said, Obama just said, this is the way it's going to be. So I guess when Obama's talking about things you won't compromise on, I guess you won't compromise on a handout to the donors and a handout to the health insurance industry. Because he told Dennis Kucinich, oh, well, that's just the way it's going to be. No public option.
And what kind of compromise have we had on war?
We've compromised. We're living in this is nothing but compromise. We live in an oligarchy. Barack Obama's pretending he doesn't know this. That we're compromise purists. Our will is never reflected in legislation, Barack Obama, and he knows that. That's Barack Obama gaslighting. Barack Obama's a bought and paid for gaslighter, which is why we got Donald Trump. And that's the mission of the show, to remind people of that, or to even fucking teach them that in the first place. And there's a lot of places that just focus on Trump. They're not alternative news shows. That's what MSNBC and CNN does. Here, we're going to tell you why we got Trump. If you want to go hate on Trump, then go watch Rachel Maddow or the other YouTube shows that do that. They're not alternative news shows. They're the problem. They're propping up Trump. They're still pushing Russiagate in a different version. And the real problem is this corrupt, bought Democratic Party. Next live Jimmy Dore show is June 5th. That's a Wednesday at Hermosa Beach Comedy Club in Hermosa Beach, California. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all tickets. We might be coming to your town. And if you love the show, please become a patron. Please support the show. We give you hours of bonus material every week. And please click that bell and make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you are already subscribed, they unsubscribe people every day. Just check. Thanks for your support.